Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
Hi, everybody. I, 40 male, have had a weird encounter with my mother in law this week and am wondering if I took it too far. For a little background, my wife and I have been married for 10 years, and I have always had a bit of a strained relationship with her mother. Her mom is a very traditional woman, and I think it bothers her that my wife and I do not follow the traditional gender roles in a marriage. I am a stay at home dad, and my wife works as a corporate lawyer. I do all of the cooking and most of the cleaning in our house, which is fine because it's the arrangement that my wife and I have come up with, and it works best for our family. My mother in law had to raise three kids on her own because my wife's biological father left the family when the kids were very young. So, not only does my mother in law believe in more traditional gender roles, but she is very bitter that she didn't have a man to fulfill those roles in her home while she was raising children. So, she ridicules me often, whether out of disagreement or spite for what I do for my kids. An example would be if I bring the kids by her house during the week to drop off cookies or something. She will make jabs at me for how my younger daughter is dressed, as if I can't dress her properly because I'm a man, even though I know she's in a perfectly acceptable outfit. And then she will make jokes about the cookies and say something like, "Well, John, thank God you got out your easy bake oven for these. Better get home in time to watch your soaps." It doesn't bother me that much, and I try to just chalk it up to her being 78 and having old ideas about how a man should act and what he should do for his family. With the holidays happening recently, there was even more drama. It basically started Halloween weekend when my kids went trick or treating at her house. I helped make my son's gumball machine costume. It wasn't anything crazy, just put together with cardboard and hot glue, and we painted it together. But she, of course, had some snide comments about how it looked like it was put together by a blind person, and how maybe if I got a real job, then the family would have enough money to buy a real costume instead of make one out of scraps and trash. My wife was working late that night, so I had no one to defend me. In general, I make it a rule to not engage with her mother in arguments unless my wife or other family is there to back me up, because my mother in law will play the victim and lie about what happened to make me look worse. So I didn't say anything and just started to chat with her about Thanksgiving plans. Now, last year was a nightmare at Thanksgiving because my mother in law had made about half of the meal and I made the other half. My half was clearly better. I'm not shaming her for that because she's an older woman and I don't think she ever was really passionate about cooking. So it makes sense that she wouldn't be able to put a ton of time and energy into preparing food and that the results would be subpar. But I really enjoy cooking and I do like to look up the latest and greatest recipes to try out, and even did a practice run of my side dishes so that I could tweak them and have them be perfect for our holiday meal with extended family. My dishes got completely devoured and I was given so many compliments, whereas her food was hardly touched. I could tell this deeply bothered her. She started to make jokes about my masculinity as usual, but then it quickly became more angry than that. And she even started to lie and tell people that I had picked up my food from a restaurant and put it into a dish to pass it off as my own cooking because I was insecure about not contributing to my family and being, in her words, a deadbeat dad. This was so laughably false that I'm sure no one in our family believed it. But I still felt incredibly disrespected. So for this Thanksgiving, I didn't want a repeat of the same issue. I just wanted to make things easier on myself, so I told her at Halloween that I didn't need to cook this year and that maybe I could just bring a dessert. She shocked me with her answer, though, because instead of agreeing to this so that she could shine as the head cook for our family, she instead told me she was thinking we should do something fun this year and do a chili cook off for Thanksgiving and have the family vote on the best meal. Now, obviously, this was a terrible idea from the start, but I agreed to it because I will admit I don't like her very much, and I knew I could slaughter her in this competition. She asked for it. Leading up to Thanksgiving, I practiced making my famous homemade chili, cornbread, and even cinnamon rolls as another side. If you're from the Midwest, you get it. Everything came out so good, and I joked with my wife that I wasn't sure her mom would be able to recover from this holiday. Little did I know the foreshadowing that would truly be. My wife did try to tell me that this wasn't a good idea, and she wanted to call her mom and say the competition was off. I told her that it was all in good fun and that the worst that could happen was her mom would make some snide comments to me like usual and hopefully get humbled by my cooking being better so that she would stop always having something negative to say. What ended up happening was way worse, though. I should have listened to my wife. That day, I brought my dishes over early so that everything would be finished right on time and warm for the family to eat and enjoy. We decided after the meal we would do a fun vote on who won the chili cook-off. Some of my wife's siblings were participating as well, so I thought this would help take the pressure off the day and really just make it a fun activity. Anyway, I stopped over at her house early in the day without calling first because I thought I would just pop in and get my crock pot and plugged in and a couple of other things to be ready for the meal. She was in the shower when I arrived, but I let myself in anyway and started setting up. As I was working in the kitchen, I noticed a box of laxatives out on the counter. I didn't think too much of it. It's really not my business, obviously, if she is taking laxatives, and I knew she would be embarrassed for me to have seen it. But then I looked closer and realized she had some crushed ones on the counter, as well as a salt shaker that was open. I quickly realized she was putting laxatives into the salt shaker to add to my chili so that people would think my food made them sick. I couldn't believe she would take things this far. I snapped a picture of the crushed laxatives next to the salt shaker and left. Instead of telling my wife right away, I decided to wait and catch this on the video to show everyone the truth. I couldn't let her get away with this, and I knew everyone would think I was crazy if I accused her without proof. And I was worried the photo might not be enough. So once we got back to her house later that evening and everyone started to arrive, I set up my phone in a hidden place in the kitchen to record. Sure enough, I got footage of her shaking the salt into my chili and on top of my cornbread. I was furious. Once we all sat down to eat and everyone had tasted a small bite of my food, I stood up and said I wanted everyone to stop eating and see something very important. Then I showed the photo and the video. I explained to everyone what my mother-in-law had done to my food and had the proof to back it up. My mother-in-law's face went completely pale, and for once, she was lost for words. Everyone at the table was so angry with her. They knew that we had our differences and tended to not get along, but no one dreamed she would take it this far. As my brother-in-law said, it was insane to think she would let her family suffer physically from the laxatives just to sabotage my meal and win the cook-off. My mother-in-law ran out of the room crying and insisted we all leave. Now, she hasn't spoken to me or my wife in a month, We've been trying to call and text, but I think she has our numbers blocked. My wife is starting to feel like I should have confronted her privately, and that by showing the video in a dramatic way at dinner, I may have ruined our family's ties to her mom forever. What do you think? AITA? We finally got a hold of my mother-in-law, and she is surprisingly apologetic for everything. She says she realizes she went way too far and got caught up in wanting to beat me so bad that she lost sight of what was really important around the holidays. My wife is happy with this as an apology, but I'm not sure. I want her to also apologize for the way she has treated me and admit that she is disrespectful to me because I'm a stay-at-home dad. And then I will maybe consider forgiving her. The more that I think about it, the more absolutely insane this whole situation is. I'm going to distance myself from my mother-in-law for the foreseeable future and have my wife do all the interactions. The way I acted was maybe a little crazy, but it's only because she was way out of line. You're NTA, but this whole situation is pretty toxic. I would cut the mother-in-law out of your life. She obviously has a lot of deep-seated problems to work through, and it's not your responsibility or your fault. That lady is nuts. You're NTA, but stop engaging with her. She is setting a horrible example for her grandkids, and you don't need to participate. My wife, Sarah, and I have been married for 27 years and have 6 kids. Our parents are all in their 80s. All 3 have health issues. Sarah is the hardest working person I know. A year ago, she would alternate with brother number 1, taking care of my in-laws. On the days she wasn't taking care of them, she took care of my mom. Brother number 1 died unexpectedly, and now my wife takes care of her parents all day and my wheelchair-ridden mom at night. We still have kids at home, and after my mom goes to bed, my wife stays up doing laundry and cleaning our home. A week ago, our daughter found Sarah. She had passed out. The doctors said her blood sugar was too low. I think it's from exhaustion. I asked our extended families to help out more. Well, this weekend, her niece volunteered to take my in-laws. My sister is in town visiting and wanted to have my mom stay with her, giving Sarah the weekend off in a very long time. I told Sarah I wanted her to not worry about anything except resting. My wife's brother, number 2, called and worked up my mother-in-law. He has some addictions and mixed some drugs and ended up in the hospital. He is supposed to be released tomorrow, but wants my wife to drive my in-laws 12 hours to visit him. I told my wife it was her choice, but I didn't want her to travel, especially after passing out a week ago. My wife listened to me, but now I have her family sending messages, calling me an A for stopping my wife from taking my in-laws to see him. I started to feel like maybe I wasn't being sensitive to my wife's family, especially after losing one brother. Am I the A here? I zoned in on that list immediately. What kind of partner sees their loved one slaving away into the night doing laundry and doesn't bat an eye? Why TA for not equalizing the load and making sure to support your wife, setting firm boundaries and taking care of herself first? If all your parents are elderly and require care, then they need arrangements for caretakers. Why WBTA if you allow her to drive? Someone with a recent history of extreme fatigue and low blood sugar causing fainting shouldn't be behind the wheel until they're medically cleared by their healthcare team, and certainly not for a 12-hour drive. Again, with the infirm elderly on top of it. For her safety and the safety of the parents, nobody should be going on that trip. They all have poor health and require care. YTA, but not for telling your wife you don't think she should make that drive. No, YTA for allowing her to work herself into this condition. Taking care of one parent or one set of parents, on top of managing her own household and raising your 6 kids, is too much. Taking care of parents on both sides is way too much, as evidenced by her passing out. You need to find a way to get some additional help so that she's not spending all day every day and then all evening every evening caretaking elderly parents. Make it clear to Sarah that she absolutely must step back some and allow the help you get to take on a great deal of that load. She can be selfish and take care of herself, or she can be altruistic and take care of herself so that she'll live long enough and be healthy enough to continue some level of caretaking for these family members. It doesn't matter whether she chooses to be selfish or altruistic. Either approach requires that she step back and offload some of that burden, because if she continues on the same path, she's going to be dead. NTA for wanting her to rest, but YTA for everything else. She passed out because she has too much on her plate. You have 6 kids, and your mother is living with you. On top of taking care of 7 human beings daily, she has to clean, cook food, and make sure everything is ready for the next day, as well as taking care of you and herself. That's 9 people. Why don't you take a few days off work so you can take over her responsibilities? Walk in her shoes. Try doing exactly what she does without asking her for help. Whenever your vacation days are up, you will hopefully understand her perspective. If not, then she deserves so much better. It's not fair to her. She passed out because of you. Don't let it happen again. My wife's sister married into a religiously conservative family with rigid ideas on how men and women are meant to behave. As someone who has a gay younger brother, it's part of the reason I don't particularly like her. I was at my father-in-law's birthday party when I was talking to my wife's brother-in-law, and he brought up his own family drama. It turns out his youngest brother is gay and was outed by their sister. His parents responded by kicking him out and cutting him off financially. He asked his brother if he and my wife's sister were willing to let him live with them. Unfortunately, they were trying to save up for a house and have an 18-month-old child, so they said they wouldn't be able to support him. In the end, he ended up moving in with his boyfriend's family and has been attending classes at the local community college while working. His life has been pretty much completely overturned, all because his parents love a magic book more than they love their son. Needless to say, he changed his SIM card, blocked all of his family on social media, and refused to see or speak to any of them. My wife's brother-in-law thinks this is unfair. Prior to his outing, he and his brother had been close, and he says he tried to make it clear that he had no problem with him being gay. I told him that this was all well and nice, but his brother had his entire life torn out from under him because of backwards, asinine superstitions, and nobody in his family was willing or able to help him. Whatever reasons my sister's brother-in-law may have had, hearing that no would have really hurt. He has every right to be hurt and angry that his entire family left him twisting in the wind, and it's no surprise that he's decided to treat all of the no's equally. My wife's brother-in-law got angry and said that I was being judgmental because he's a Christian. He said that he would have loved to have helped him out, but that it just wasn't in the cards, and it's unfair that he was being tarred with the same brush as his parents. I asked him if he confronted his parents about their behavior, and he said that they needed to stay in their good graces because they'd promised to help pay for college for their daughter. I told him that while he had valid reasons for his choices, these choices had consequences, and there was nothing he could do aside from living with them. My sister-in-law has been blowing up the family group chat, saying that I was rude and unfair to her husband and needed to be more sympathetic to him. It's turned into quite the debate, and a few family members have taken her side and said, I need to apologize. My wife says, I didn't do anything other than state unfortunate facts. AITA? NTA. The brother in law made the decision that might have been best for his family, as he should, but the brother then made the decision that was best for him. I'm sure he's going through a lot right now, and it's totally possible that maintaining relationships with family who didn't stand up for him when he needed it is too much for him to deal with right now. Maybe things will get better, or maybe they won't. It's up to the Heat brother to decide if he wants to reach out. NAH, while I can see your side, your brother-in-law wasn't financially able to take in his brother, and it's not fair you're putting him on the same level as his parents. He's also trying to make sure his child has a future, which is the only reason why he didn't call his parents out on their awful behavior. College is expensive as hell. He shouldn't have to risk his kid's future over this issue. It honestly sounds like your brother-in-law is stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it's not really your place to judge his choices. Brother-in-law's younger brother chose to cut off your brother-in-law just because he couldn't house him, not because brother-in-law rejected him. He shouldn't be held to the same standards as the parents, and he shouldn't be put in the same bad light as them. NTA. It doesn't cost anything to let someone sleep on your couch. If there were utility or food cost issues, they could have arranged the brother working to pay his way, either through extra chores around the house, extra beyond his upkeep of his own space, cleaning up after himself, or actual money. If the brother was able to get a job, then living there and paying reduced rent would have helped them save up even sooner. His excuse has more holes in it than Swiss cheese. No wonder the brother is pissed.